Hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Nationals podcast. Joining us today, as he does every week, it is Matt Weyrich from NBC Sports Washington. Today it is the 20th of April, 2022, and the Nationals won 2 games in one day yesterday against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We'll have some thoughts from that and more coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, once again, hello, everybody. Josh Neighbors here joining us today, as he does every single week. It is Matt Weyrich of NBC Sports Washington. Matt, the Nationals right now, after a really nice day yesterday, are in second place in the National League East. Now, it's early in the season, right? But they are currently tied in second place with the Atlanta Braves. So, you know what? Hey, like, generally speaking, some positivity. And I think the big thing for me is I don't think the Nationals are a good team, but things that good teams do, they beat bad teams. And, you know, some teams, even good teams, don't beat a bad team twice in one day. The Nationals did that yesterday and then last night. So, overall thoughts of just, you know, going not just 1-0 today, as Dave Martinez says, but going 2-0 yesterday with the Nats.
Yeah, definitely lots of encouraging things from the Nationals in that doubleheader. They got strong starts from both Joan Adon and Josiah Gray, two of the younger pitchers in their rotation. They saw Victor Robles spark a couple of offensive rallies after he had been held hitless over his first 18 at-bats. He came through. Cesar Hernandez with a couple of RBI doubles. So certainly a lot of things that the Nationals have to hang their hats on from that series. But of course, it is the Diamondbacks who have scored just 1 run in their last 29 innings. So it is not the most fearsome of competition,
Right.
But wins are wins, and the Nationals will certainly take them given how few they are projected to have this season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And, you know, it's, you know, this is what eventually down the line, if they want to compete, things that you have to do, right, is beat the bad teams, you know, and keep yourself, you know, that's, you play in a tough division sometimes. The divisional games are tough. You know, you got to take care of business when those teams from usually different coasts come in, especially on their second series, right? It's difficult. They played a good team in the Mets. They lost that series. You know, the rain gives them a day to gather themselves, but also gave the Nats a day to gather themselves after, I would say, a pretty disappointing weekend in Pittsburgh. Let's start with last night's game first. So Joanna Doan, you know, he goes 6 1/3, 3 hits, 2 walks, 5 Ks, no runs allowed. Really strong performance. He was the first Nationals pitcher this year to make it through 6 full innings. He only did it in 88 pitches, which for the Nationals, it's pretty good. It's pretty good right there. To me, his spot in the rotation is an interesting one. He really is not the odd man out, but I would say in this sense, you know, he's not the known quantity that everybody else is. Obviously, you're still waiting on Strasburg to come back, but Corbin, you kind of know, or well, we don't know, but like you know what he should be or can be, or what he's trying to, at least trying to get back to his old form. Eric Fetty, like they just want him to be steady Fetty, right? That's kind of what they want out of him. And then Josiah Gray is obviously a young guy with a lot of promise, so you kind of know where he fits in all this. He's somebody you figure to be in the rotation, not just this year, but down the line. You know, Josh Rogers that's a question mark, but he's not part of the rotation to start off with. Anibal Sanchez, you hope to be the kind of the old steady hand. Joe Ross, we go down the line, you know, another steady guy. He had a good year last year. And then obviously Strasburg too, coming back from injury. But Adon is kind of like the weird, you know, he's a young guy, but he's not a really top sought after, thought of, you know, highly thought of prospect, but he's still very young. And I think he was the guy kind of just, he had some nice moments early, but really did have some struggles early on in the season. And I think it's funny that he's actually the guy who makes it to 6 innings. I think he's probably the last guy I would have picked to go 6 full innings. What are your thoughts on his start yesterday?
Yeah, you know, Adon is a guy that's been on the Nationals' radar for several years now, even if he wasn't, you know, up there in prospect rankings. You know, they signed him out of the Dominican at 17 years old and have developed him themselves. And, you know, we know that the Nationals have really struggled to develop pitching, but Adon is a guy that they have put in a lot of work in over the years to turn into a major league ready starter. They gave him 1 start at the end of last season, and he's come out of the gate so far this year, even leading up to yesterday's start, showing a lot of promise. You know, he had some performances where the wheels kind of fell off towards the end, facing lineup third time through, things like that. But, he showed flashes of, absolute dominance. He has a lot of movement on his pitches, and we saw that in full force yesterday with a lot of looping, breaking balls, fastballs up in the zone. Was even able to touch 97. He was clearly amped. And he got his first major league win out of it, which Davey Martinez was 30 minutes late showing up to his post-game press conference after game 2. And he would not tell us exactly what was going on, citing he wanted to keep it within the circle. But he did say that, it was to celebrate Adon's first career win. The clubhouse was obviously really excited about that. And they said it was a night he would remember for a long time. So spirits are high for Adon moving forward.
And I would say these are the kind of moments that we're going to be talking about, right? Like this kind of moment's going to be coming at some point for a guy like Cade Cavalli, right? Josiah Gray will hit some certain milestones. On the hitting side, you're going to have guys like Keibert Ruiz hitting certain, milestones as well. It just kind of shows you where this team is. Even older guys, right? Paulo Espino last year, it just kind of showed you where things were, right? First, I think it was first win in his career and then first save in his career. It's kind of where the Nationals roster is at. I want to say, thought the Nationals did a great job, especially Adon, just understanding the circumstances. A cold night after in the second game of the series, that's a time to attack, right? That, might get some tired legs, the other teams in the road. I thought he did a good job attacking yesterday from the outset. It was pretty clear their intentions were, all right, let's go out there, let's get back in the dugout best we can, right? And I thought he really did a good job facilitating that. I thought there was a certain amount of using the elements to your advantage. Do you agree?
No, definitely. Adon, even talked about after the game how he knew it was cold out there, and he wanted to take advantage of hitters who, maybe were a bit more rigid than they usually are, not as loose, and pumping in that heat. He had a hand warmer in his back pocket that he was using frequently to try to keep his hand warm and flexible. And, like you said, he came out pounding strikes, and that was the big thing. His pitch count was getting up there early in his first couple of starts. That's why the Nationals weren't able to push him as deep into games as maybe they would have liked to. But he came out today, had a couple of really efficient innings. I believe one was 8 pitches, another was 12. Still had an inning or two where he really had to work through things. But he's a young pitcher, still trying to find his way in the major leagues, and that's to be expected. So the fact that he was able to go 6 1/3, put in the Nationals' first quality start of the year, the Nationals got to be pretty pleased with that.
And then Tanner Rainey yesterday. So this is the day where the Nationals offense, at least a night where the offense wasn't there. The no, yes. I mean, it looked like old Tanner Rainey. And, I think it's a guy that we don't always say we feel bad for pro athletes, but like you could tell his confidence was really shaken last year. And for him to have an opportunity now is to be like the closer and to shake off that last night. Like you could just tell after the game, it meant a lot to him, and you could tell he's frustrated with how it actually got to that point, but he's like, my job is to get people out. Like the bases shouldn't be loaded. He got out of the situation, and I thought he did it with some poise and did it with good pitching, and the defense was there behind him. And so I was really impressed by the way, I was not impressed by how he pitched. I was impressed by the way he gutted it out, though.
Yeah, he's a guy who the Nationals, despite the fact that he was sent down to AAA Rochester last year, despite the fact that he missed time with injury, they have maintained their belief in him as a potential closer of the future. And right now, closer of the present. Davey Martinez said after the game that when he is fully rested, Tanner Rainey is going to be their guy for save opportunities. Now, he won't be overused like a Sean Doolittle might have been a couple of years ago, closing games 2-3 nights in a row. Davey feels comfortable going to other pitchers such as Kyle Finnegan in those chances. But for the most part, it's going to be Rainey. And he, like you said, he showed some poise last night, loading the bases with no outs, to start the inning. It's a one-run ball game. And to be able to get out of that by, getting a pop out, a foul out, ground ball, or a fly ball out to left to end the game. I mean, that was some impressive pitching. And, the Nationals sent a pitching coach, Jim Hickey, out there to talk to him about his fastball and how it was looking a little flat to them off the bat. And so he, was able to hone in that control, get his pitch working the way he wanted it to, and ultimately get out of a really tough jam. So you got to give him credit for that. And, he's got 3 for 3 on save chances this year. So, the Nationals overall, this bullpen has actually looked pretty good, across the board.
You wrote about Victor Arano, and to me, it's like he's got that Wander Suero role because it feels like Wander Suero is the guy who just came out of the pen like every day. It felt like Wander Suero was pitching. And the Nationals need that. Like, I think it's weird to say you have a sixth inning guy, but doesn't he feel like a sixth inning guy? Like, it's like the sixth inning is basically his inning, and he's been really strong. These are the kinds of players the Nationals have to hit on, right? When you're not willing to spend a ton of money, right? When you, not because you won't at all, but you're tied up in some big contracts, hitting on Kyle Finnegan's, having Sean Doolittle's come back, resuscitating a Tanner Rainey, finding a Victor Arano. Like, these are the guys that have to work for you. Not just, we're not talking about winning games here, but down the line maybe, but like to not have an abject disaster in the pen last year like it was, right? It just about, being serviceable and solid. And he's gone above and beyond. Just talk about some of your work. You don't have to spoil everything you wrote. People go check it out, NBC Sports Washington. But just your thoughts on, on his role, and is it that Suero role that kind of was, we saw with Wander so much?
Yeah, Victor Arano, a guy who coming into this year hadn't pitched in the major league since 2019, had elbow surgery, missed 2 seasons, was in the Braves minor league system last year, but never made it up into the majors, is finally getting a chance with the Nationals. And he's playing a key role, even if it's not one that's going to earn him saves and holds. He's a guy who Davey Martinez is relying on, as the fireman, the guy who comes in with 1 out and runners on first and second, and he needs to get the team out of the frame. Or he comes in the 6th inning with the Nationals down 2-1. It's not, maybe doesn't produce the sexy numbers that protecting a 2-1 lead does, but it, when you are down by 1 run still in the ball game, that inning is just as important. And the Nationals can't use their A relievers, guys like Finnegan and Tanner Rainey, Sean Doolittle, in all of those situations. Sometimes they need to, lean in farther down the pen in order to keep a game close. And that's exactly what Arano has been able to do so far. A tremendous amount of strikeouts, 12 strikeouts. It's over a 15 K per 9 on the season. And he hasn't walked a batter yet. And that's in 7 appearances. So certainly impressive for him. It's all about his slider. If that slider is working, it's practically unhittable. So the Nationals have been really high on him. They were throughout camp, and he earned that spot at the bullpen coming out of spring training, and certainly showed that he deserves it.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting, because his numbers were good in the majors. I mean, if you look at his, his major league numbers, is it that elbow surgery? Is it those elbow issues that are really, why teams weren't so, interested in having him despite his good numbers?
I mean, he seems like kind of a forgotten man. He was basically out of the league for 2 years. The Phillies cut bait. And then the Braves weren't convinced enough, despite he actually put up pretty good numbers in AAA last year. But the Braves bullpen was honestly pretty filthy last season, and they really just didn't have a need for him at all, especially being a right-hander. They've had their noted issues with lefties, but, on the right side, they're pretty set. So they didn't feel a need to bring him up, and, ultimately decided not to bring him back last year. And, the Nationals, benefited from that. So it really is just them, maybe being familiar with Arano, having seen him in the division a couple of years ago, and Davey Martinez being willing to give him a chance.
All right, we'll get to the first game from yesterday. First, quick word from our sponsors. It is Mother's Day season, everybody. You guys can pick out a great gift for anybody, really, honestly, in your life with Blue Nile today. The Mother's Day, season is always an easy one, or not an easy one for a lot of people to shop for. This will take care of that. You guys go to BlueNile.com and you guys use Locked On Sports, Locked On, LOCKEDON, as the promo code, and you guys will get $50 to $500 off, depending, on what you are going to be buying. So everybody, please check that out today. Go to Blue Nile. The stuff will arrive in a discreet package, so you guys can make sure nobody can tell what it is. Blue Nile. They are the official jewelry provider here of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Matt. So yesterday's 6-1 game, let's talk about Josiah Gray. This is really a podcast. We focus on pitching so much. We'll get to the offense, but pitching is what we have to really focus on for this team. Josiah Gray has a really strong outing. I'm not seeing it. Don't have the numbers pulled up right now, but was it 5 1/3? I think 8 Ks he ends up getting, 1 run allowed. It was off a home run, which we'll get to in a second, but this is part of the development here. This is the kind of outings they need from him more often. Now, I think the one thing I'm a little concerned about is, the home run ball as it warms up is going to be something he's got to keep himself aware of. I was talking to somebody yesterday and they said, ask me about Josiah Gray. And I said, look, the home runs, man, like he'll leave stuff over the plate and you can take it. Now, I like it because he's aggressive. That means you're being aggressive. If you're leaving pitches over the middle of the plate. Now, you'll miss more often, but he'll learn with age how to better control his stuff and situationally how to take care of things like that. But your thoughts on that performance and a strong outing to put the Nationals in really good position.
Yeah, look, Josiah Gray is a fly ball pitcher. He's going for either striking you out or getting you to, hit a fly ball to one of his guys out in the outfield. And that's just kind of his style of pitching. He's not going to produce a lot of weak contact ground balls. It's kind of all or nothing, which is going to produce, some bad starts and some good starts. We've seen it with Max Scherzer. Who is a guy who is kind of the same way. Will obviously rack up the strikeouts, but when teams are making contact, it's usually not on the ground. It's up high. So that's kind of his MO. But I thought that, he was presented with a really unique task yesterday, having to face a Diamondbacks lineup with 9 left-handed or switch hitters. He said it was the first time in his entire baseball career, in any game that he faced an entire lineup of lefties. And that forced him to really rely on the curveball. And that's what I wrote about for NBC Sports Washington, is just how much he had to use that curveball, which for him is still a relatively new pitch. He only learned it back in 2019, started throwing it a year later. And coming up through the minor leagues, it was kind of considered his third pitch. His slider was considered his primary off-speed offering. And he doesn't throw the slider against lefties. He only threw 5 in the whole game. I'm basically saying, okay, well, since they're going to throw all lefties at me, here's my curveball, see what you can do with it. And it had great success. He only allowed 1 hit on it. I believe he had 6 whiffs out of the 8 swings on the pitch in general. So overall, great numbers with the curve. The fastball was effective. It is the pitch that he gave up a home run on, which is going to happen from time to time. But if he can keep the ball in the yard, limit it to 1 home run a game, something like that. I think that the Nationals will certainly take that from him at this current stage of his development. As we saw last year, the home runs can add up, and he kind of got lucky with a bunch of solo bombs early on, and then it caught up to him. So if, he can be more consistent and not give up too many long balls, keep that ball in the yard, I think that there's certainly reasons to be optimistic about where he is right now. And the strikeouts, that's something that I wouldn't be looking for him to rack up right now. But when he does, you certainly got to be excited.
Yeah, and I think he had, I forget which game it was, first, second start last year, we had a few and people were, okay, this guy, and it did actually remind me of Max towards the end, it felt like it was like, okay, home run or K, was a lot of times the result of Max Scherzer. So, and he's learning too. And I think we're seeing some of that development. I think also too, the full lineup of lefties, I do think at some point actually does help though, because you're like, I'm used to it now. I know what's coming up next, right? There's no righty lefty, right? We're not flipping around 2 lefties, a couple righties. So I think that, while difficult, I think there actually is something to, I'm not sure if you mentioned anything about this, but don't you feel like it, you maybe settle in eventually?
I mean, yeah, you certainly, if you're getting used to just having to throw in on batters every single time, you're going to be able to repeat that over and over again from at bat to at bat and not have to. So it certainly does make sense.
So also, what are your thoughts on double usage yesterday? I'm not sure how many guys. I think it was just Kyle Finnegan, right? Got used in both games.
Did he? Yeah,
he pitched in both games. Yeah. He I think he threw a full inning in both those games. Let's see, threw 13 pitches in game 1 and 14 in game 2. What do you think about that? I was a little surprised to see it.
Finnegan is a guy who, no health issues to report.
Tough
he's
dude
a guy
also.
Who's just, he's willing to take the ball and do whatever. In my short conversations that I've had with him so far this season, he's a team player. He's a guy who, is going to do whatever Davey asks of him. He was very grateful for the opportunity to close games last year, but he isn't looking to be a closer. He thinks that, any outs, towards the end of the game are just as important no matter what inning you're in. So he strikes me as a guy that, if Davey says, can you do this? He's going to say yes, no matter what. As a guy who was kind of like a career minor leaguer for a long time and then finally got his chance with the Nationals, he's not going to squander that. He's going to try to take hold of any opportunity he gets. And if that means pitching twice in a day, hey, of all the people in the bullpen right now, given his age compared to where a lot of the other guys are health-wise, he would kind of be the guy to me that jumps off the page as somebody who would pitch in both games.
Offensively, the one thing it stuck out to me, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, lack of sustained offense, right? They've had a lot of really nice first innings this year out of the Nationals, but they're not scoring throughout the game. Now, yesterday's first game, they actually didn't score until I think it was the 5th. But I like the fact they got 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, 3 in the 8th. That helps just the bullpen because you're helping to grow the lead, or in situations where they might be giving some back, you're keeping the pressure applied. And what that comes down to really is hitting throughout the lineup. And you mentioned Victor Robles being able to get going, and you mentioned Cesar Hernandez, being able to do some stuff. Like the bottom part of the lineup has just been such a, let's be honest, it's been a disaster so far this year. And I'm not sure what they do to fix it, but just your thoughts on them being able to actually, string together some more offense. Like, I just think those guys at the back end have to be, like around league average or a little bit below. They're not even close to that right now. And we saw them yesterday do a little bit of that, and they got a 6-1 win.
Yeah, I mean, let's be completely honest. The lineup has been Juan Soto, Josh Bell, and a little bit of Michael Franco mixed in.
Right.
It hasn't really seen steady production from anyone else. Cesar Hernandez has had a nice little streak of reaching base to start the game. He obviously had 2 RBI doubles yesterday. But his overall numbers are not great. He's not drawing very many walks, getting on base a ton in front of guys like Soto and Cruz, which Cruz has not been hitting at all, really. Has 1 home run on the year, but other than that, hasn't done much at the plate so far this season. Left field has been a bit of a hole on the offensive side, given Lane Thomas's lack of production there. Shortstop between Lucius Fox and Alcides Escobar hasn't seen a whole lot. So there are a lot of holes in, Victor Robles. We've touched on him many times. There are plenty of holes in this offense right now, and the Nationals are willing to be patient to see if some of these veteran guys can kind of settle into who they used to be. Guys like Franco, Escobar, Cesar Hernandez. Those are guys that they've seen them do it in the past, and they think they can do it again. Same with Victor Robles. They think that he can get back to his 2019 form, which, back in 2019, we were talking about how that was a good building block for him to actually become a complete hitter. So even him reverting back to 2019 form, still is a hitter with some question marks, a bit all or nothing. Did have 17 home runs, 17 stolen bases, a solid year for sure, but not necessarily the complete hitter, top of the lineup kind of guy that the Nationals were hoping he would become. So, the answers to these lineups are just kind of patience. Obviously, right. Luis Garcia is down in AAA. He just won AAA Player of the Week.
I was gonna bring that up because, like, at what point do you pull the trigger on this? Because, we talked about him getting reps, but Escobar looks like the guy who there's a reason why he was out of the league, right, for a little bit of time. And it was awesome to see him last year. It was, good veteran to have, but got a kid tearing it up there in AAA, and Escobar is not really doing well. I mean, give him the chance, right? Give him the opportunity. I mean, Escobar has been so bad so far. It's like, what's the worst that can happen? I know they're worried about, they want to foster his development because there's no pressure to win right now, but he's off to a hot start. It's not like he hasn't played in the majors before, and there's a pretty clear need in the lineup. And, we'll see what he does at shortstop as a defensive player. I know that's kind of the big concern, right?
Yeah, he had 4 errors in his first 5 games at AAA, so certainly not
right.
not the start the Nationals were looking for. But he has.
But they are throwing Michael Franco out there, who's not, no Gold Glover over there, right?
No, and Carter Kieboom is working his way back from an elbow injury, and they're hoping that he can, come back and be their third baseman, once he is ready to go. So, we're going to see the lineup look different, in 2 months than maybe it looks right now. Right. But, I know fans want to see Garcia, and to see him win Player of the Week in AAA, it definitely, makes you think, is this kid ready? But he is a kid. I mean, he's 21 years old. He would be among the 15 youngest players in Major League Baseball if he were called up today. And the Nationals don't see any reason to rush him. Yes, they have a stated intention to have a competitive product this year, but let's be honest, they know that they're not world beaters. They're not going to be serious contenders for the World Series this season. What is the rush in bringing up Garcia? Sure, you're going to have Alcides Escobar, who has the lowest average exit velocity in the major leagues right now among qualified hitters. Sure, you have him at shortstop right now, and that's not necessarily offering a ton of offensive production, but the Nationals also see him as a valuable clubhouse leader in a very strong Latin American clubhouse for guys like Victor Robles and Juan Soto to, talk with and gain experience from. They also see him as a plus defender. for an infield that, has some question marks. Like you mentioned, Maikel Franco at third base, Josh Bell at first, probably a league average first baseman, but he's, no Gold Glover. Alcides Escobar is kind of the anchor defensively for that infield right now. You bring up Luis Garcia, who, as we mentioned, has had some defensive struggles. The whole thing could unravel from there, and that entire left side of the infield might be a disaster. You don't want that to be the case. So, I understand fans wanting to see Garcia in the majors sooner rather than later, and I think that he absolutely should be up within the next month or two. But for right now, maybe Escobar is able to hit 260, with a 320 OBP. Maybe a team wants that at the deadline. Maybe a team is looking for a utility infielder that they could have, to play multiple positions, and that could be Escobar, and you get something out of it trade-wise. There's no reason to make any rash decisions in April.
One more thing on the defensive end. So I don't know the numbers for this, but the number feels high. I think they said yesterday Keibert Ruiz has thrown out 6 people already this year.
No, 3 of 6.
3 of 6 Okay.
Yes.
I heard yesterday it was like 3 of 6.
But 50% is impressive.
Yeah, it's really good. Right. I was like, there's no way it's 6. Absurd. But on defense, he looks strong back there, and he's got a good arm. Most time he's pretty accurate, and you got to think about running twice about running on him, and that's really good for a kid his age, I would say too.
Yeah, he was tested in the first inning this season. Starling Marte tried to steal a base against him on opening day, and he promptly threw him out. And Marte has been among the best base stealers in baseball for the last 10 years. So, when the Nationals acquired Ruiz, it was because of his defense. It was because of his receiving profile, his makeup, his work before and after games and preparing to work with pitchers and things like that. Like that was what the Nationals acquired him for. The offense was something that was just kind of icing on the cake. For him, especially the power, he was always kind of a guy who saw the strike zone well, and, he had strong OBP numbers throughout the minor leagues, but the power didn't start to show itself until last season, when he really just exploded in AAA. I believe he led all AAA catchers in home runs last season. So that kind of came out of nowhere. And, we haven't seen the home runs yet, but we have seen him hit a lot of deep fly balls that, probably will be home runs later in the summer. But, home runs are down across the league right now. At a historic rate at the moment, actually. And, with all 30 teams switching to using humidors for the baseballs, that might play a part in why we have been seeing a lot of balls dying at the warning track. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that kind of unfolds for Ruiz throughout the season.
Yeah, not loving that. Let's be honest. We want the long ball. It kind of makes the game a little bit better. All right, Matt, one more quick word from our sponsors, and we'll get you out of here. Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Go to Built.com today. It's Built.com. Built Bars have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. They've got mint brownie, coconut almond. They are just as tasty as candy bars, but better for you than candy bars. Go to Built.com today. It's Built.com. Promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com today. All right, Matt. So what have you been working on? Tell us about some of the pieces that you've been writing, and also where people can find you and all of your other work.
Yeah, was at the ballpark yesterday for both games, so got to talk to Robles and Josiah Gray, and wrote up stories on both of them. Robles and his work that he's been putting in at the plate, raising hands in his stand, kind of get a better, feel more free, he said, in his swing, which allows his hands to get around quicker. So a little breakdown on that. And Josiah Gray's curveball, wrote a piece on that and how effective it was. So if you're interested in those numbers, you can dive into that over at NBCSportsWashington.com.
Awesome. Appreciate your time as always, Matt. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.